Look how cute we look. Kid core.
World.
Skirt core.
I kind of saw myself as like a earthling, like...
Earth core.
Like if I could, I'd have my like little pointed ears, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Just like walk out of a forest.
Is
just
that
collecting, spent the day foraging mushrooms. Dress for the job you want. Are we ready for another chapter of Jack Whalen's masterpiece? Another frightening insight into the Mormon male psyche. We'll analyze that later.
I get bored of theories. It's like, you just say shit and then you're like, but I don't want, like, don't hold me to anything I say. Because I just said it in the moment.
I feel that about this channel all the time. I'm
know.
like, people are going to, and people do sometimes will be like, hey, wait a second, like, you said a thing, and I'm like, oh yeah, please don't assume that I stand by any of this.
Problematic!
So much stuff. Like, I'm trying to say how I feel usually, but like, also shit just comes out and we're just like talking into a mic.
Mm-hmm. And when you're like dizzy from Jack Wayland intoxication, it's like...
Drunk off the highs of
the literary feats of Jack Wayland.
We're like halfway through, if not more, right?
This will be... There's 14 chapters, so this is the halfway point, yeah.
That's kind of grim. It's dragging on.
Okay, chapter 7 of Charly. Here we all are. I can do this. I'm here for this. I was excited for this all day. Mm-hmm. The energy will
all
flow
week
into
even.
Me. Mm-hmm.
I think about this thing way too much. Like, I can't overstate how much Jack Wayland is living rent free in my head.
You guys have no idea what's going on behind the scenes in terms of this series. Like, it is becoming bigger and bigger.
It's consuming my whole identity.
I could see us doing nothing but Charly content for the next year.
Let's do it. Jack attack.
We had our interviews with the bishop and stake president only 10 days before the wedding date. For those of you who don't know, who weren't LDS, those interviews are for...
Going to the temple to get married.
Which involves...
Worthiness questions, asking if you've done anything against the law of chastity, if you've been touching each other inappropriately, if so, how many fingers.
As far as I could tell, the interviews had gone well. Also, it's like, I know that other churches do this, but like the gatekeeping of having to do interviews with a bunch of people to get married.
Not a cult.
About your private sex life.
Before you can go into the castle, we have a few questions.
At least, on our way home that night, we both had temple recommends in hand. But Charly was strangely quiet as we pulled up in front of her house. This is going to be the chapter!
Uh-oh.
This is the one I've been waiting for!
Uh-oh.
Ah!
Some herbal, non-caffeinated tea is about to be spilled.
Or oolong if you're a bad boy, and it's iced.
Some mate.
I'm so excited! Anything wrong? I asked, turning off the motor. I've been energized. I've come back to life. Jack's done it again. She took a deep breath and closed her eyes. Sam, before I joined the church, or even knew anything about it, there were some problems in my life. Problems that would have prevented me from getting a temple recommend if I'd been a member of the church. I thought I should tell you. Immediately hate how this is being framed.
Uh-huh.
What kind of problems?
I was engaging in perfectly normal human behavior.
I know. So Jack Wayland comes from a time where I think the church has got better and better over the years, but like it was still not cool even if a convert had sex. Like I remember my friend in college, one of my best friends, she was like, she'd gone on dates with this guy and they were like texting a lot over summer break or something and talking about their lives, and she ended up, and they would like chat on the phone, and she ended up mentioning that she had sex in the past and like had repented for it and whatnot, and then he just like was just done with her after that. And she was like a very good Mormon girl.
Damaged goods.
Yeah, like that still exists.
A licked cupcake.
Oh yeah, today's scent of reading this book
Perfect.
is Licked Cupcake by Exmo Candles.
I got that lesson in Sunday school, the chewed gum thing. Like, oh yeah, like if you have sex, you're basically like a chewed piece of gum, and you're gonna have to like take it out of your mouth and hand it to somebody else. And who wants chewed gum? Like everyone wants a fresh piece of gum, because
disturbing.
that is as far as we can imagine another human being.
Just completely objectifying them.
Virginity as a purity thing is so fucked up.
Very fucked up, yeah. Anyway, so she nervously pursed her lips. problems of moral cleanliness. I felt sick.
I do too.
She's
For
been
one,
baptized,
Sam
lest
is
we forget.
feeling.
Yeah, I know.
It's relatable.
Did you tell the bishop and stake president about it? I told them everything. And they still gave you a recommend? Why would he be questioning that? Like, what do you mean? Like, she's supposed to, like, punish herself for things she did when she thought it was perfectly fine to do them? I mean, obviously they are still perfectly fine, but we're operating within the premises of this book. Sam, it was before I had even heard about the church in New York. Why didn't you tell me about this sooner? When I was baptized, you told me my past sins were completely forgiven.
He's no longer relatable. Whoa.
I couldn't let it alone. Do you remember all their names? I asked, tortured by my imagination. You small little man!
By men named Franco and Wilhelm. People with strong names. My imagination's running wild. She could have been sleeping with a Grigor.
Doesn't need to be said, but like this is a learned behaviour to feel threatened and tortured at the thought of your partner being with anyone else in the past before they even met you. Like, it's just absurd.
Because she's always going to be comparing your dick to his dick, which was
to me,
9 inches long and made of gold.
He got the, like, blue semen penis enhancement in Brazil from My Dad Wrote a Porno.
Yeah.
As we've got some My Dad Wrote a Porno fans just tossing them a bone.
Yeah. We're just writing them now.
She started to cry. Doesn't it make any difference to you that since I've been baptized, I've kept the commandments? I don't want used merchandise.
Oh, merchandise! She's an object that you pay for with money, you're a private whore! Ah!
And you feel like you are owed something. You are owed this cleanliness from her because you're paying for it.
Oh.
He's not a good Mormon.
No. And I think in some sense this book did help push the needle forward a little bit in Mormon culture of being
I bet it did actually. I bet Jack had a positive influence on Mormon culture, potentially. Yeah.
At least in that sense. Because I remember like watching Charly and being like, oh yeah, that is stupid. Like,
I mean, we've obviously been roasting Jack because this is a comedic series and stuff, and the book is atrocious in many ways, but it is. This is a good example of how you can never really know if something's good or bad, and I think Jack Wayland had to be able to write within these parameters of reality for Mormons to then kind of present the idea that it's okay if someone had sex before they joined the church. It's still like such a low bar. Like, this is being progressive.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, after you're the ones who believe that this ordinance like washes people's sins away. The whole thing of your church is the atonement, and yet like you don't even subscribe to it in these situations. Like, that's just goes to show that the culture really does overtake doctrine, even though they are absolutely like working in tandem.
Yeah, we're getting two sides from Jack. He's teaching us through exposure to the bad things. We're seeing the bad side, the toxic side, but also the positive side. We get a Jack v. Jack situation, or to borrow a joke from 30 Rock, a jack off.
The two parts of his psyche are dialoguing with each other and sort of hashing it out on the battleground of the pages of Charly.
I am the Jack brain. She's like, you're not the man I fell in love with who is always saying shit back things to me.
This doesn't make sense with everything else we've seen of your character at all. I could just as well have struck her in the face. It would have hurt her less.
Yeah, probably dick.
I'm sorry, I apologized, seeing the look of devastation on her face. We sat in the dark, silent except for her tears. Then I walked her to the door and left. Just before I got into the Jeep, she called my name and I turned around. The announcements are already mailed, she said. I know. What should I do? I don't know. Should I start phoning to cancel it? No, not yet. I drove to Bishop Archer's office.
Because the bishop's just there all day and night.
He is a man consumed.
Just like, I am here
Bishop
to make
doesn't
sure
have anything else to do.
Sam and Charly
help all these other kids get over their jerking off problem.
Oh, God.
Bishop, I can't marry her. She told me what happened before she joined the church. She has completely repented. She's not clean in my eyes, and she never will be. With great patience, he went through several scriptures dealing with repentance and forgiveness, but they didn't seem to help me. Bishop, I don't care about that. You never should have given her that recommend. She's not pure the way I want my wife to be. She's not worthy. This sounds worse. This is the worst yet.
Yeah.
This is like very disturbing.
Yeah.
And it kind of feels like a little bit of a I don't know if straw man's the right word, but it kind of is like Jack's almost imagined like a comically terrible character.
Yeah.
Whereas it's like the real there's the real sort of issue with mindsets around chastity in the church is like it's a lot more insidious, and it's a lot more like it's just a very shallow take is what I'm saying. It's like you've created this like he's such an overt villain in this situation. Like this guy's supposed to have been on a mission and converted people into converts through
and yet this
the repentance
definitely
process.
Was probably the mentality in the 80s.
Which again goes to show like in every high demand religion, like it is so much more about tribalism and like loyalty to the culture and the dogma than it is like even the things that you claim are the core things, because it's like the atonement is supposed to be your main thing.
It's your whole shtick.
Your main thing.
But it's not.
Also, just telling the bishop you shouldn't have given her a recommend just because like she's not pure how I want my wife to be, like rude. If I was the bishop, I'd be like, how dare you question my authority? Yeah. I'm going to steal your wife once I'm done with this. He raised his bushy eyebrows. You really feel that way? Yes, I do. Then give me your recommend, please. Oh, this is fun. This is Jack having fun with us. I like this. I handed it to him and he put it in his desk drawer. What did you do that for? I complained. She's the one, not me. He stood up to usher me out of his office. Why'd you take my recommend away? You don't believe in the atonement of the Saviour.
Oh, shit. Wow. Finally.
Bishop Austin Archer. Until you can accept that people can make mistakes and repent and receive forgiveness, you'll never get a temple recommend from me. I am the keeper of the keys. You don't understand. I could understand if you said you couldn't marry her because you personally couldn't deal with her past, but I won't let you tell me she's not worthy, because that simply isn't true. That's a good point, actually. It's like, yeah, if you really feel that way, then
that you have a right to be a bigot,
her.
like, yeah, don't subject her to that.
Exactly. Jack.
Wow.
You had no right to take away my recommend. I answered all the questions right. I'm the bishop of this ward and a judge in Israel. Oh, the power play that's going. It's like...
Can we just talk about how, like
none of this is real.
How subtly, well, probably just, like, openly, like, appropriative and therefore, like, truly anti-Semitic the church is by being like, we're Jews, we're
I'm
Israel.
a judge in Israel.
And it's like, no, you're not. You're a white dude in Utah. Like,
so true. I don't know why I've never even thought about that. You can't just say you're a judge in Israel.
They all are just like, yep, we're of the tribe of Israel. We got adopted. And they're like, they didn't adopt you. Like,
holy shit.
It's so weird.
My mind is blown right now. Of course, but it's like, yeah, and of course they've never thought that through.
It's like just going up to some random family and being like, I'm in your family now, you adopted me. And it's like, no.
I'm a barrister in France. Who can tell me I'm not? I'm the bishop of this ward and a judge in Israel. And this is also kind of setting up a bit of a precedent for people putting too much trust in bishops. Because the bishop is the savior in the scene, but it's also like, well...
Do you think he, like, archetypally represents Jack's higher self?
Mm-hmm, definitely. Bishop Archer.
Yeah.
I'm the bishop of this ward and a judge in Israel, and I say that she's more worthy than you are. Don't you... Oh, monotheistic religions with their hierarchies of worthiness. So quaint. Don't you call unclean what the Lord has pronounced clean? And with that, he closed his office door.
Goodbye.
Sam.
Can we just go... Oh, I thought that was the end of the chapter.
No, we've still got 4 more pages, kind of.
Wow.
I stormed to the stake president's house and demanded that he release the bishop. Damn! This guy has that energy of like when something... That's like, feels like very narcissistic energy. When someone does something he doesn't like, He's like, fire him, or like get him fired, get him, you know, that's a specific, very, very unhealthy energy.
Extreme Karen
energy, yeah.
Okay.
But it's like almost darker than a Karen. Oh, I get so sweaty without the air conditioning on.
Oh, the sacrifices we make. We are in literally 77 degrees.
79. I stormed to the stake president's house and demanded that he release the bishop. He asked me why. I told him. And after I did, he replied, he never writes the dialogue. He's like, I'm not doing I don't really know how speech marks work. He asked me why. I told him. And after I did, he replied that he would have done the same thing and that I was the one in need of repentance. I spent the next several hours driving and thinking, and later, after my anger had subsided, praying. Did I believe in the atonement of the Saviour? Yes. Did I believe that baptism could produce a washing away of past sins? Yes. Did I believe that Charly had lived the commandments after her baptism? Yes. Then what was the problem? I could believe that the Saviour could forget past sins, but I wasn't sure I could. What if I were forever haunted by bitter fantasies about her past? Bitter fantasies? How could I ever forget that I, if we did get married, wasn't the first? I love how they haven't, all they've said is moral cleanliness. They haven't said anything but that's, in Mormonism, that's, the biggest moral issue. It's not like I ran a sweatshop of children and underpaid them. About 2 a.m, I parked my Jeep on a barren ridge and prayed for help. Then I sat in the Jeep and thought, this Jeep is a more prominent character than Charlie's mum.
Do you think Jack Wayland is sponsored by Jeep?
Does he have a Jeep, or does he just want a Jeep? Like, the Jeep is constantly mentioned.
He wants a Jeep.
The Jeep's in every chapter.
Okay, Sam is just a character who has never encountered a real problem in his life.
Not once.
Like, never, ever been forced to grapple with anything really, really challenging.
So, like, he's so narcissistic, he's so childish, he's so
just a
cold
straight up
and heartless.
curmudgeon.
He doesn't have empathy. And the whole thing is that Charlie's supposed to be so in love with him because of his moral character, and it's like, this is his moral character. Like, treating girls like shit and then asking them for money to go see another girl is his moral character. Like, his moral character has been shown throughout the book. It's just this weird idea that because he's Mormon, even though he doesn't even believe in his own fucking doctrines, I mean, I guess he's, like, doing the work right now, so, like, go Sam, but...
Don't you think it's a pretty Mormon and potentially, like, mainstream American Christian vibe that, like, a lot of men are dating women or, like, marry women totally out of their league because they're able to, like, make them feel bad about themselves morally. Yes. Oh, you have a past, no one ever wants you. I'm the worthy one. You're the whore. And I am condescending to be in a relationship with you. Like, I know so many like that.
And it's the perfect strategy, because if you take, like, a male Homo sapiens who's not at the top of the sexual food chain, who's kind of down there, and then there's a woman who's way higher up, it's so brilliant, upsettingly brilliant, to, like, just lower her self-esteem, to turn the fact that she's essentially, like, a high-quality mate that is sought after into, like, there's something wrong with you. They can just tell women that anything is a thing that's wrong with them, basically. Like, any quality a woman can have can be something that's wrong.
And Mormonism is set up to convince women that they are fundamentally wrong. You do not belong in this picture. You do not get a clear idea of your afterlife or your role here. You just be a quiet little mouse mom.
Yeah, but please be blonde.
Please, if you have any love of God in you.
Yeah, it's really sad. It's really sad that, like, Charly didn't tell him for a reason, you know? Like, it sounded like she'd been stressing. Yeah, but then you still agreed to marry him? Why?
Because...
Wasn't this his main thing, like, being Mormon? Well, he's not even good at that.
This is it. She sees him as the one person who can validate her and make her feel like a good person.
Yeah, because she was really feeling bad about it, which is the saddest thing.
She needs to do some healing, and it's not through him. He's just showing you where all the healing...
Where the wounds are,
yeah. Where the wounds are, exactly.
Your triggers are your teachers, folks. What if I had never heard about the church until I was the age she had been when she moved to Utah?
Nothing would have been different. You never would have had sex.
Yeah, seriously. What if, when I was growing up, there had been no Sunday school or seminary or mutual or firesides or bishop's interviews?
You would have had to get a personality.
You would have had a healthy relationship with your own sexuality and not shamed women like this. What mistakes would I have made? All of them, I realised. You think you would have done crystal meth? Yeah, right! You do not have what it takes to take crystal meth.
I would have made the mistake of signing up to fight for Al-Qaeda.
I reflected... Yeah, if I wasn't a judge in Israel.
A judgy judge in Israel.
Judgy McJudgeson in Israel. I'm going to call this title episode Chewed Gum, but Judgy McJudgeson in Israel is good too. I reflected back on the day Charly came out of the waters of baptism, the glow that filled her face, and our conversation in the garden the week after her baptism, and the changes I had seen in her as she learned about church standards. Ew.
Ew. Her individuality slowly being whittled away.
Chip. Beautiful. She had gradually made changes in every aspect of her life, even to the point of altering her sleeveless dresses so she'd be able to wear them after going through the temple. The ultimate Mormon morality compass. Altering your sleeveless dresses.
Oh, God.
Raise your hand if you had a moment where you decided to become more righteous by throwing out your skirts that were just slightly above the knee.
Mine go way past. I'm good.
Okay, fine. That was it! She had become a new person! The fear and misgivings left me, and I wanted to be with her and apologize and let her know that I loved her and wasn't troubled anymore. I drove as fast as I dared down the mountain, but by the time I arrived at her house, it was 3:30 in the morning. At first, I tried to throw little pebbles against her window, but they didn't wake her, so I proceeded to throw progressively larger pebbles.
Just breaks her window. I wanted you to let you know I'm not crazy anymore. Then I drove my Jeep.
My all-wheel drive Jeep. It's hard to judge these things. The sixth rock shattered her window, making a terrific crash.
It did?
I thought you were so good at judging.
Wait, it really did?
Yeah, making a terrific crash.
Oh my God. He's become the parody. You can't write this. Someone can.
Something about this next sentence rubs me the wrong way, but tell me if I'm just being
Everything about this book rubs me the wrong way.
I heard her father shouting for his wife to call the police.
That rubs me the wrong way.
Do you know, it's the little sexisms, it's the microaggressions that really get to you.
He called for his wife.
Why not? I heard her father shouting for her mother, or like I heard her father shouting for
Jeanette.
It's like, pick one. It's like the woman is always just like subtly subjugated in all of the way that the book is written.
As a possession of the husband, the father. Totally.
Yeah.
So weird.
For his wife.
Wow.
Like Charly's mother. The mother who has still not been named in this book.
Despite having multiple reoccurrences.
Then the lights in the 2 bedrooms flickered on. In a second, he stuck his head out the window. What's going on out there? Good morning, Father, I sweetly answered. He's gone nuts! He's fucking lost the plot! You've just broken his daughter's window by throwing a rocket at 3 in the morning, and when he's like, what's going on? You say, good morning, Father. He swore and left the window, muttering Charly's name. In a minute, she was leaning out. Sam? Yeah, hi. Did you say Father? Yeah. Does he prefer that, or should I call him Dad?
He actually prefers daddy. He actually prefers daddy.
Come save me now. Come save my life, you made a vow. Silence. Charly, I love you more than ever. Oh, this again. They are in a cycle. And they're not even married yet. And listen, if you're having these kinds of toxic high highs, low lows, these patterns happen before you've even got married, it's not going to get any better.
It's not going to get better. Shit, this is pure toxicity.
This is it. He does something really stupid and like disrespectful and I would say sexist and just generally awful and bigoted and mean and cold, and then is just like, I've actually realized that I love you more than ever. So that's an abuse dynamic. You treat her like shit, and then you love her more than ever.
Broke her fucking window.
Because then you realize that like you might lose her. That is an abuse dynamic. I'm sorry for being so unkind to you. You are virtuous and good and clean, and I love you. I love you too. It's almost morning, isn't it? Do you want some breakfast? Sure, let's have an almost breakfast, shall we?
Wait, so did the daddy thing work? He was like, oh, okay, my sweet angel. If nothing's wrong with the broken window, I'll just go back to my wife.
this Mormon kid who's already, like, made your daughter join a cult, and she's marrying him, and she just met him, and he's calling her unclean, and my God.
Showing up at 3 a.m. to break
He
her
doesn't
window.
fucking know what to do with nutshells. He just leaves them on your counter every time he comes over. That's kind of disturbing. It's like, just ask where the trash can is, dude. We were married on a Friday in July in the Salt Lake City temple. That evening there was a reception in which we wore out our smiling muscles.
Face kegels.
Then we had one last dish of ice cream with her parents at her home.
Okay.
Sam? Oh my God. Sam? Her father cornered me beside the Jeep as he threw in Charlie's suitcase.
Square off between two men in front of a Jeep. What could be more masculinely charged?
So hot. So hot. 69 wheel drive. No. If you ever need any help, alone or anything, don't hesitate to let me know. He's come around. He's really come around. Tears were forming in his eyes, and that surprised me. It surprises me too.
Isn't that the fantasy that non-Mormon parents will just be chill with you acting like a complete fundamentalist nut?
Well, Tana, the fantasy continues. Thanks, but I want to be as independent as I can. I don't think we'll be needing anything, but thank you anyway.
What the hell? What a dude.
Just like flexing your Mormon like prosperity gospel mindset or something. Like, why would you say that? It's like, why is that in there? It feels like Jack's trying to make it a teaching moment.
What a douche.
Like, this liberal dad will help out his kids with money, but we... Because what Jack Wayland is from that era. Of
you
like,
owe him for a broken window, pal.
I know, you owe him money.
This is the climate in which my parents were raised.
And that's why you
fun.
didn't get lunch as a kid.
What a douchebag. Just be like, thank you so much. That is really a kind offer.
My trial continues. I just read ahead. Her mother's stenciled on face was starting to melt.
Fuck you!
The fucking disdain that Jack Wayland has for Charlie's mother for some inexplicable reason. It's like he's just thought of like some, I don't know, liberal woman that he doesn't like. I don't know, but there's a weird dynamic.
Totally dehumanized her this whole time. Doesn't even give her a
Stenciled
fucking name.
on-
Always speaks of
Yeah.
her as like a possession of her husband.
Yeah, she's never given a name. She's always spoken about in like a lesser way. And he's constantly insulting her for like wearing makeup. When you come from a patriarchal culture, like your own apostle told women to put on a little lipstick. Like you...
You're gonna pressure
really-
Charlie into getting a boob job.
Yeah, I bet you will.
Nothing wrong with it, but don't pressure people.
I really, really hate this, like, when men who are a part of, like, creating these bullshit standards for women are then mad at women for like, trying to meet them. And this, like, there's a whole conversation to be had about this, but, like, with makeup and plastic surgery and all these things that women do to try and meet the standard that's been set by the patriarchy, what men actually want is for them to just naturally like embody all of those things. But if they do anything to try and like achieve it when they're not naturally it, then that's also frowned upon. It's like anything less than just being like the perfect woman who's just always existed as such and doesn't have to do anything to try in any way. You just like exist as this perfect object for the Sams of the world. Anything but that is just like you have no value.
We are totally seeing Jack's unhealed Madonna whore complex.
We really are.
Which is like, you have to be this pillar of absolute pristine virtue, but you also have to be sexy as hell and accommodating to all my fantasies and preferences. Ooh.
So annoying.
This is really disturbing. It's always more subtly disturbing than I anticipate. Like, the outright stuff is like, ooh, nice try, we'll swallow that. But then there's, like, all the details are just like, ooh.
Yeah. It's the subtle stuff, isn't it? You know, someone made a good point. I don't remember who, but I was watching a YouTube video about this lately. Like, basically this phenomenon. And they talked about how it kind of feels like a lot of, like, toxic straight men don't actually like women that much. Like, they like this idea that other men have created about what women should be. Mm-hmm. But, like, actual women, they don't really like.
No,
like, they
yeah.
like, you know, the sort of, like, stereotypical
They like
standard,
sex.
like, the hairless, childlike body, you know, with, like, the massive... It's like, you don't like how women naturally are.
Right.
So then do you like women that much if you can't appreciate, like, the female form?
Let alone the the female personality.
Yeah,
or...
yeah.
Yeah, if you only like women if they change everything about their self or have to
like, what does that say about you?
Yeah.
It's just...
Sounds a bit gay.
Sounds gay to me. I don't know, that's a whole other topic we could dive into, but it is just interesting to think about, and it's just, again, it's like all the sexism is just, like, inherent to a book like this because the author is sexist. And, like, Charly is written kind of to try and be, like, Jack Wayland wants to be a teacher through this work, but, like, he's limited by his own blind spots, as we all are.
1 step forward, 2 steps back.
Yeah.
Damn, the 80s were a bitter, grim time. The dark ages. Reagan was in full bloom.
Her mother's stenciled on face was starting to melt from the tears she'd unloosed that day. Also, even, there's, like, the fact that that's written about with disdain. Like, her daughter got married. You haven't showed an ounce of warmth towards this woman's mother.
Do you think he resents his own mother-in-law?
Yeah, I bet he does. I'm sure there were mascara erosion lines around her eyes. Why is that important to the story, Jack? Like, what possessed you to put that in there? Like, what do you think was going on?
For a man who's not prone to giving any valuable details whatsoever,
That's a detail
your
that's
focal
important.
points are very insightful into your psyche.
True. This is a case study into Jack Wayland's psyche. I mean, as the Book of Mormon is of Joseph Smith and blah, 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 blah.
Our art tells us who we are.
Mm-hmm. Shit. Well, I guess I'm someone who likes to have high highs and low lows, you know.
Because we do
series.
this kind of thing to ourselves.
This is kind of an abusive.
I am addicted to chaos.
I'm neurochemically addicted to the drama of Charly. Mum, thanks for letting me go to the temple, Charly cried when it was time to leave them. Someday you'll understand why it was so important to me.
When you're dead and in prison and I come to save you.
She threw her arms around her mother and they both sobbed. It made me feel like the wicked ogre tearing the fair young maiden from her parents and home.
Honestly, not far off.
Mm-hmm. Charly was still crying as I drove the few miles to the hotel. I, on the other hand, whistled a happy, although nervous tune. He's like, I don't need her to be in a good mood as long as I'm in one and I'm looking forward to what's about to happen.
What was he whistling? Afternoon Delight?
Approaching the reservation desk, I boldly announced, my wife and I have a reservation. The name is Roberts.
We plan to have marital intercourse. We're trying to form the beast with 2 backs.
I was about to say the beast with 2 backs. I was about to say we're about to do some beast with 2 backs in.
We're about to indulge in some carnal indulgence, about to indulge in some carnal pleasure.
He looked at us, probably no different than he looked at anyone else, but it made me feel embarrassed and, yes, guilty. Oh my God. Do you want to see our marriage license? I asked, my voice cracking, as if this hotel guy is like...
Gives a shit.
Okay, so, but this is interesting though. So Sam/Jack is revealing the common phenomenon of Mormon people on their wedding nights feeling guilty, even though they logically know that there's, you know, they've followed all the rules, they've done everything right. But it just goes to show how deep the toxic shame conditioning is.
Sorry, I seem nervous. I'm about to have sex for the first time, and he's like, I mean, maybe. Things could still go wrong.
My wife is crying, but I think this will turn around. He smiled. No, sir, that won't be necessary. It seemed unusual to be changing into newly purchased pajamas that evening as Charly prepared herself in the bathroom. I'm upset. It's the sex scene of the book! As I nervously tried to find all the pins the factory had hidden in the pajamas. So he's just putting on, like, full-on... He's not doing, like, a little sexy black underoos. He's doing, like, a... She's probably getting into something really cute and sexy for him, and he's putting on, like, old man pajamas where you have to, like, unclip the folds.
Yeah,
and they're going to have, like, these straight lines down them.
It's been so long since I bought anything from, like, JCPenney. I forget they put pins and shit.
As I nervously tried to find all the pins the factory had hidden in
I love
the pajamas.
how he's putting on pajamas. Like, you can't just go from being clothed to...
You have to put on your sex outfit,
yeah.
your sex costume first. And yours is pajamas.
It is sleepy time, if you get my drift.
I recalled my mission president explaining his feelings about being on a mission. There's no place in the world I'd rather be than where I am right now. Well, how's that relevant to the fact that you're about to dick down for the first time? Except for my nervousness and my fear of leaving one pin in the pajamas. That was the way I felt at that moment.
No, what the hell? Why did he say that?
He just always has to make everything moment. So he's just saying like, well, my mission president used to say there's nowhere I'd rather be right now than on this mission. And there's nowhere I'd rather be than taking these pins out of this pajamas. Yeah.
About to put my little pin in this pajama.
That's just a weird way to describe that emotion. Instead of being like, I realize there's nowhere else I'd rather be despite my nervousness. You feel like the need to like reference your mission president, saying like there's nowhere I'd rather be than on this mission. It's like,
I honestly can't get off unless I'm thinking about my mission president.
I have to be telling mission
Daddy.
stories throughout lovemaking.
This actually reminds me of one time we were teaching this investigator. The return missionary problem of having to relate literally everything to your mission because you have nothing going on.
I just saw another really bad sentence.
Oh, no.
And this is some real 80s throwback. So this is... When she came out, she looked so beautiful in her long, white, flowing, modest negligee. Why is she modest? Why is she modest? She's
Why
about to have
does it
sex.
matter?
Just like in the room with your new husband, you're supposed to be modest.
Make it sexy, but not too sexy. Well, that was totally like anal was against the rules.
You couldn't
oral
even wear
was against the
lingerie for your
rules.
husband.
But this was back in the day when
I
they
know.
literally were having sex with garments on. They probably had sex with garments on.
No, I can't believe that that's true.
I
I can't believe that was ever a mainstream thing. That had to have been just outliers.
No, I think it was mainstream. I think my parents may have.
No, they didn't. They both
I may have been conceived
They
in-
wore very sexy costumes when you were conceived.
She comes out in her fursona. You said you wanted to be modest. You didn't ask me any questions about my past. Well, here it is.
Why is she wearing a modest negligee? I need answers. If anyone was like around for this time, like,
what does a modest negligee look
me
like?
more.
I thought the whole point of a negligee was to not be modest.
I cannot. I mean, a negligee that's modest is just
A burlap
dress.
sack?
It's just a dress. Like it would. What would it? It wouldn't show anything. It would just be.
I did not want to see her boobs.
Let's Google modest negligee because I'm just like, what is possible here?
Yeah, what are they selling it down east?
Modest negligee. Well, that wouldn't count as even. It would be
That's-
like fucking this.
That's just a dress.
That's just a dress. Or
Those
like
are
that.
just-
That's probably the kind of thing.
That's
we're
what like a
working with.
haunted Victorian child wears.
That's upsetting. This chapter has been.
This
Alright.
is just.
Well, she said quietly.
Should we bang?
Here we are. This is just like that scene in Crossroads when Britney Spears has her purple lingerie on and is like on the side of the door. This is the same energy.
Oh.
She sat on the bed beside me. Nervously, I cleared my throat.
He's already coming, I can tell. Jizzing his pants. She's so modest.
Ooh. Oh, no, I just have to finish and then we can just rant at the end because there's like 3 more lines. So don't say anything until the end. Just suck it up. Hello, husband dear, she said with a slight smile. Before we begin, I said.
Do they have a prayer?
What did I say? What did I say to you?
No.
You promised, borrowing an old missionary line, we'd like to have a word of prayer. Who's we? Who is we? Okay, I just have one more line I need to get out of my body. We did, too, a kneeling prayer, our first family prayer.
Oh my god. I am so disturbed.
I was nervous for the chapter where we found out that she wasn't a virgin. Well, I was actually really excited, but I didn't. That chapter was just like an absolute self-contained case study in the toxicity of Mormon purity culture. Just like couldn't. It's like it's like a parody.
We should submit this to some East Coast liberal elite university and have
So
them
they
just
can learn what family really looks like.
and so they
It's
can
ghost dresses on your
psychoanalyze like
wedding night.
religious ghost dresses. That is so disturbing.
Yeah.
We want to have a little prayer.
Who's we? And also, I love how
Get
he's
on
just
your knees in your
immediate.
modest
Yeah,
little
I know. Our
dress.
first. Yeah, I know.
Oh.
Why is she wearing a fucking modest dress? Like, I don't understand that.
Wow, he's a one pump pony if there ever was one. Wow, he probably can't even get it up because his mission companion's not there, and it just isn't right. Sorry, I'm used to having a prayer, like relating it all back to the mission.
I know, even the line at the end where it was like, borrowing an old missionary line, like so much weird mission stuff related. Here's my theory on this: they're really relating like the mission to sex and the wedding night, and I think it's because like so much. It seems like to me, tell me if I'm wrong, but so much of male Mormon missionary culture is like, you know, be really righteous and you'll get a hot wife, and they tie it so it's like you have to earn the right to have sex by going on a mission and getting married, and so it seems like it's a big like and also a mission is a really traumatic experience, and it's a massive cult entrenchment experience where you like lose your sense of identity and surrender it to the organization. So you're still so attached to it, like, because you're trauma bonded with the mission. I know that's not the right way to use that phrase, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, totally.
Like, you can't let it go because it was so traumatic. You have to believe that it had this purpose, and because of the amount of traumatic it has to be equal parts purposeful and meaningful. So it's like you're bringing it in ways where, because that's your psyche is still for, presumably, let's just assume he's been back for like a year or whatever. If you entrench your psyche for 2 solid years, especially because back then I imagine it was even worse than your mission. You know what I mean? Like every fucking decade you go back in Mormonism, more terrifying, more horrifying, more disturbing.
Yeah. And there's a degree of creepiness even more that it's like it's set up as the not just like your rite of passage so you can get married, but this is modeling how marriage is going to be. Like they very much like this and will give you a template. And the man's
the senior companion forever.
This will, exactly.
On a power
This
trip.
will give you a feeling of what it's like to be married, to be living with someone all the time, to be engaged in the work of God together. God, if that's so weird to be bringing up at that moment, like thinking about your mission president, about your mission companion when you're wanting to pray with your modestly dressed wife before having sex for the first time.
She's going to be so disappointed with her wedding night.
Oh, yeah.
She's like lived
She
with
is going to be comparing them to Mark and Grigor and...
That was the most disturbing chapter yet so far for me.
It just gets worse and worse.
Oh, I am nervous about Jack having the chops to write the next more serious half of the book.
Oh.
That's going to be interesting.
I don't even know what to say. That's terrifying.
I know, I'm like, there's a lot to unpack.
A whole generation, several generations of Mormon youth.
And he was on the progressive side of the spectrum, you know? Like, back in his day, I'm sure, you know, he was kind of standing up for the progressive-ish ideas of the time. I mean, Mormons are never looking to get too progressive too fast, you know?
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, think about the rhetoric from, like, around that time and before that time that, like, if my child loses their virtue, I would rather have them dead than
come home in a coffin
than lose their virtue.
And Brigham Young, like blood atonement, and teaching that like it's better if someone sins, it's like kinder for you to kill them with a javelin because it's going to be worse for them.
Because then they've atoned for it.
Blood atonement, God.
Yeah.
Thank you for tuning in for Chapter 7 of Charly. If you'd like to support our YouTube channel, you can do so on Patreon or PayPal.
Thanks for making quality content like this possible. Not like Charly, but our reaction to it. I feel like I've just been like blunt force traumatized in the face and like don't even know how to react.
Yeah.
Wow.
Bye.